And yet you cannot have a Christian or what we call public Christian without the depth of a private relationship with God, because then we call that hypocrisy. Do you know what I mean? And so actually we just need both.
Why do I feel closer to God in private than I do in church?
That's probably going to be quite dependent on the individual, because for every person who has that experience, I probably can point out just as many who have the opposite experience. So I do know people who are like, I feel that much closer to God when I'm with others, when I'm with, in church, or when I'm singing, I feel that, because something about the music or something vibes with them, or just being with others. So there are just going to be differences, and also differences based on our own experience. So someone who came to faith primarily, in their kind of me and God moments, might have actually searched for God, or God led them to search for Him, and then they've come to faith, and it's been just a personal realization, and then made a decision to step into church. That's not surprising. Others have had the opposite experience. They've not had much to do with God personally. They came to some church meeting or some event, and then boom, it's all of a sudden, everything came together, and then they really felt the presence of God, maybe because the music and the sermon just really, hit them hard at that stage. And for them, they'll find it really hard to sit alone with God and with the Bible open, praying and reading. And so, yeah, it can just be a personal experience thing. But again, I think, as a person matures in their faith, they'll see that both are important. Like, you cannot have a private Christian without a Christian in community. Like, there's no such thing as a solo Christian. And yet you cannot have a Christian in or what we call public Christian without the depth of a private relationship with God, because then we call that hypocrisy. Do you know what I mean? And so actually we just need both. And I think for a lot of people, there'll still be preferences even much later on, but you don't carry out your Christian life based purely on your preferences. You decide, okay, both are important, so I'm going to be committed to both. I'm going to be committed to spending time with God in private, reading the Bible, praying. And I'm going to be committed to spending time with God's people, hearing the Bible, singing, praying, fellowshipping is a Christian word, together in the community. And I'm going to do both, not because I find them equally beneficial at all times, but because I know that they're both important. Yeah. And that decision to commit to both will actually, in the long run, really help any person mature. In fact, if you're only committed to one but not the other, and there are some Christians who are like, yeah, I'm happy to just be private Christian, I just don't get the church thing. Or plenty of people who come to church and there are lots of church activities, but they never have time alone with God. Both are going to be malnourished in some sort of sense. And if you just have one or the other, that's going to damage your Christian life over the long run. The growth of faith is about constantly stepping outside of comfort zones, like whatever it is, just like a general rule, right? It's like you can't grow muscles without doing weights. You can't grow faith without resistance. Like we've got to constantly say, okay, again, it's coming back to, don't let my experience not just be the ground of faith, but don't let my experience be the trajectory of faith. Because if my experience is the trajectory of faith, I'm always going to choose comfort and I'm never going to grow. Rather, I'm to let God's word, God's revealed objective word, and His promises be my trajectory of faith. And He tells me in His word what it takes to grow faith. And in this example, to step out of our comfort zone, to grow faith in community, or perhaps for another person to grow faith in private devotions, whatever it is. Growth in faith will only happen when we say, okay, it's not about how I feel or my experience, it's about what God has said. And will I trust that enough, His promises and what He said, to take that step, even if it's almost especially because it's uncomfortable. That's when I'm going to grow.